We've all been there. You're in the middle of a conversation that turns into an argument. Your heart's racing, your voice gets louder, and you start defending yourself just to prove a point. But here's the truth. Most of us don't lose arguments because we're wrong. We lose because we react. The goal isn't to win the argument. It's to protect your peace while holding your ground. So today, let's talk about how to defend yourself the smart way without losing control, your respect, or your credibility. When you find yourself in an argument, the first instinct most people have is to defend, react, or fight back. But the truth is, defending yourself in a state of emotion is like trying to see clearly through muddy water. The harder you stir, the less you can see. The calmest person in the room always has the most power because they're the only one thinking clearly. Staying calm isn't about being passive, it's about staying in control. You can't control what someone says to you, but you can always control what they get from you. And when you stay composed, you stop playing their game and start guiding the conversation on your terms. Calm is strength disguised as silence, and silence often speaks louder than defense. Imagine someone attacking your character, twisting your words, or raising their voice just to throw you off. Most people take that bait. They match tone for tone, volume for volume, thinking that louder means stronger. But the moment you lose your composure, you hand over your power. The calm person doesn't rise to meet chaos. They let chaos fall flat against their stillness. Because arguments feed off emotion, and when you don't feed it, it starves. Staying calm is not pretending you're unaffected. It's showing that your emotions serve you, not the other way around. It's saying, you can come at me, but you can't control me. That energy changes the whole dynamic. Think about how powerful it feels when someone expects you to explode, but you don't. You just breathe, make eye contact, and respond with intention. That pause right there, that's where respect is earned. Because people don't expect calm in conflict. They expect reaction. The pause is your secret weapon. It's what gives your words weight when you finally speak. You don't have to rush to fill silence. Let silence make them uncomfortable instead. Calmness is contagious. It makes people question their own behavior. It pulls the argument out of the emotional zone and back into reason. And when you control the emotional temperature, you control the direction of the entire exchange. Being calm doesn't mean you don't feel angry or frustrated. It means you choose not to let those emotions take the wheel. You can acknowledge how you feel without letting it dictate your behavior. You can say, I'm not okay with that, or let's take a step back, without shouting. The calm tone doesn't make your message weaker. It makes it clearer. People remember tone more than words, and calmness forces others to listen because it's unexpected. When you react emotionally, your message gets buried under noise. When you stay calm, your message lands exactly where it needs to. It's not about suppressing emotion, it's about mastering it. In moments of tension, your breathing becomes your anchor. When you slow it down, your body tells your brain you're safe, even if your ego wants to fight. That's how you break the cycle of defensiveness. Because defending yourself isn't just about what you say, it's about how you show up. You can say the right words in the wrong tone and still lose the point. But when your calmness leads the conversation, you shift from defense to authority. You become someone who commands attention instead of demanding it. You move from reacting to leading. You don't have to convince anyone of your worth when your composure already proves it. So next time you're pulled into an argument, don't let it pull you out of yourself. Stay calm, breathe, and remember, your peace is not up for debate. You can disagree without disrespect. You can stand firm without raising your voice. You can defend yourself by simply not being moved. Because power isn't in how hard you hit back, it's in how little they can shake you. Calmness is your armor. It's the invisible line that separates reaction from response, chaos from clarity, weakness from strength. And the moment you realize that, you'll stop trying to win arguments and start mastering them. Listening before you respond is one of the most underrated skills in any argument, yet it's the one that separates emotional reactivity from real strength. Most people don't actually listen. They wait for their turn to speak. They're forming comebacks in their head while the other person is still talking, and by the time they respond, they're not answering the person. They're answering their own assumptions. But listening is not about agreement. It's about understanding. When you truly listen, you slow down the emotional pace of the argument and take control of it. You stop reacting to words and start responding to meaning. That single shift can change the tone of an entire conversation because people don't calm down when they feel defeated. They calm down when they feel heard. When you listen first, you show that you're not afraid of what's being said. That alone gives you power because defensiveness always looks like fear. The person yelling wants to pull you into their storm, but when you're listening, you're not fighting their chaos. You're observing it. You're giving them space to empty out their emotion while you're gathering information, reading their tone, and understanding their intent. That's the part most people miss. Listening isn't passive, it's strategic. You're not just hearing what they're saying, you're figuring out what's driving it. And the moment you understand that, you know exactly how to respond. The person who listens owns the rhythm of the conversation. Sometimes the best defense isn't a strong comeback, it's a simple pause. Let them finish. Let them run out of words, because once they've said everything they needed to say, they have nothing left to throw. And in that silence, they'll start to notice your calm. That silence speaks louder than your defense ever could. When they expect you to interrupt but you don't, it disrupts their rhythm. They lose momentum, and that's when you gain control. Listening is like taking a deep breath in the middle of noise. It centers you. It allows you to choose a response that carries weight instead of one that carries emotion. And when you finally do speak, your words sound intentional, not impulsive. Listening also helps you see the argument from a different angle. Sometimes what sounds like an attack is actually frustration, fear, or insecurity coming out sideways. If you react too quickly, you'll end up fighting symptoms instead of causes. But when you listen, you can recognize what's really being said underneath the surface. Maybe they're not mad at you, maybe they're hurt, maybe they're not criticizing you, maybe they're asking to be understood. Listening lets you see that layer. It takes maturity to separate what's emotional from what's true, and that's how you defend yourself, not by blocking words, but by understanding them before they hit you. When you listen without reacting, you make the other person feel seen, and that disarms them faster than any counter-argument ever will, because people raise their voice when they feel unheard. The moment they realize you're actually hearing them, they start to lower it. Listening doesn't mean you agree or that you're weak. It means you're confident enough to hear things without immediately needing to defend yourself. It's emotional intelligence in motion. You create space for them to calm down and for you to gather your composure. That space is your power, because once emotion drops, logic enters, and logic is where you win. So when you're caught in an argument, remind yourself your goal is not to be the loudest voice, it's to be the clearest one. And clarity only comes when you listen first. You don't need to interrupt to make your point. You don't need to rush to correct every word. You just need to listen long enough to understand what's really being said. That's how you respond instead of react. That's how you turn conflict into control. Listening before responding isn't submission. It's strategy. It's the calm before the clarity. It's how you defend yourself, not with volume, but with wisdom. And the moment you master that, arguments stop being battles. They become conversations you lead, not ones you lose. One of the most common mistakes people make in an argument is over-explaining themselves. They think that if they just keep talking, keep clarifying, or keep defending every detail, the other person will finally understand or back down. But that's not how it works. The more you explain, the more it sounds like you're trying to convince yourself, not them. Over-explaining is a form of anxiety. It comes from the fear of being misunderstood. But here's the truth. You can't control someone else's perception of you, no matter how many words you use. Clarity is power, and when you speak with clarity, you don't need to justify yourself 100 times. Defending yourself doesn't mean proving your worth. It means protecting your peace by saying what's true and letting that truth stand on its own. When you start to over-explain, you hand over your power without realizing it. The more details you add, the more room you give the other person to twist, question, or challenge you. You think you're strengthening your point, but you're actually weakening your position. The strongest people in an argument are the ones who know when to stop talking. They don't chase validation through explanation. They understand that silence after clarity speaks louder than any defense. You don't need to fill every gap in the conversation. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is simply, "That's what I meant," and leave it there. Because when you don't rush to prove your point, it shows confidence. It says, "I know what I said. I stand by it." Think about it. When someone says something false about you, the natural instinct is to explain, to clear your name, to make sure they know your side. But when you keep explaining, you give them control. They can keep pulling you deeper into the argument, asking more questions, twisting more words, and suddenly you're defending things you didn't even say. That's how people drain your energy, not by being right, but by keeping you stuck in defense mode. The key is to answer clearly, then stop. Let your words breathe. The longer you stay quiet after your point, the more uncomfortable they get. That silence tells them you've said what needed to be said and nothing more, and that calm restraint earns more respect than a long explanation ever will. Confidence doesn't come from talking more. It comes from saying less with meaning. When you explain too much, you train people to expect justification every time you speak. But when you're brief and clear, people start to listen differently. They realize your words carry intention. You're not speaking to fill space, you're speaking to set boundaries. And the thing about boundaries is, they don't require explanation. They require consistency. You don't need to tell someone 10 times why you deserve respect. You just need to show them once through how you carry yourself and how little you engage in emotional tug of war. The person who over-explains seeks permission. The person who's clear gives direction. And that's what control looks like in conversation. Every word you add beyond clarity is a step away from strength. Over-explaining invites misunderstanding because it turns a statement into a story. The more you talk, the more opportunity there is for your meaning to get lost. People who argue to win want you to keep talking because they know the longer you speak, the more they can find something to attack. But when you stay concise, you give them nothing to grab onto. You hold your ground without feeding the fire. And when you're not feeding their energy, the argument starts to lose its fuel. Sometimes the most mature response is no defense at all. You don't have to prove your truth to someone who's committed to misunderstanding it.